He may have had the Folsom Prison Blues, but it wasn't until Johnny Cash found himself in a real ring of fire that the feds came a-knockin', and he isn't alone on the wrong side of the law. Papa John Phillips was one of the most important musicians of the 60s, due in large part to his work with the Mamas and the Papas. He was also an afflicted man, with a life marked by drug addiction and unstable relationships. In 2009, his daughter, Mackenzie Phillips, a successful actor and singer in her own right, leveled a shocking allegation against him, that they had an abusive relationship throughout the early part of her life. In her book High on Arrival, and in a subsequent interview on Oprah, Mackenzie claims she awoke to him assaulting her around age 17, and that it went on for a decade. It only ended after she got pregnant.
I had an abortion, and I never let him touch me again.
While the rest of the Phillips family acknowledged that John wasn't exactly a saint, they're all of different minds on Mackenzie's allegations. John's ex-wives, Michelle Phillips and Genevieve Waite, didn't believe the allegations. Michelle told The Hollywood Reporter that Mackenzie was mentally unwell, while Genevieve released a statement saying she did not believe John was capable of it. John and Michelle's daughter, China Phillips, however, fully believes her half-sister.
Yeah, I knew. I knew for 13 years.
Jessica Woods, daughter of John's bandmate, Denny Doherty, emailed Oprah and said, "Everything she said is true. My dad told me the awful truth. He was horrified at what John had done and knew all of it." On January 16, 1980, Paul McCartney flew into Tokyo to kick off a tour of Japan with his band Wings. As history details, upon arrival, Japanese authorities found about half a pound of marijuana in McCartney's belongings and arrested him. He was charged with smuggling, even though he claimed it was for personal use, which didn't exactly help his case. The entire ordeal saw him detained for 9 days before getting deported from the country.
I still am hazy as to how that happened, but it did.
It's true that the Beatles were always associated with drug use, and even though it's still illegal in many places, a rock legend smoking a joint is largely a victimless crime. That is, unless you're in Japan, a country with both stringent drug laws and, as Vice notes, a strong social stigma against drug use. Though the legal consequences are enormous, the social consequences are life-changing. As Japan-based journalist Brian Ashcraft explained in a column on Kotaku, if you're in Japan, keep this mantra in mind. Never do drugs in this country, ever. Beside the risk of lengthy jail sentences, stars, big and small, have seen their careers come to screeching halts after getting charged with drug possession. McCartney got off easy. In 2004, he revealed why he was so cavalier about taking drugs on a plane. This stuff was too good to flush down the toilet, so I thought I'd take it with me. In March of 1969, The Doors performed in Miami, Florida. Lead singer Jim Morrison was, by most accounts, drunk and erratic. By some accounts, he taunted the crowd and exposed himself. This led to him getting charged with a felony and 3 misdemeanors for his behavior. Whether or not he disrobed is a source of contention to this day, but there's a preponderance of evidence that he didn't. History notes that almost all the witnesses for the prosecution had connections to the cops or the district attorney. Indeed, the Miami Herald interviewed at least 3 people in attendance, all of whom deny that Morrison dropped trout except for an off-duty cop present that night. Doors drummer John Dinsmore told The Hollywood Reporter, "He didn't do it. I was there. If Jim had revealed the golden shaft, I would have known. There were hundreds of photographs taken and tons of cops, and no evidence." Either way, the trial ended with Morrison convicted of indecent exposure and open profanity. Morrison posted bail and was still appealing his conviction when he died in France. In 2010, Florida Governor Charlie Crist posthumously pardoned Morrison. Per Reuters, Crist said this was because Morrison's death robbed him of the right of appeal. Wilson Pickett gave us Land of Thousand Dances in the mid-60s. He also became the man of a dozen crimes in the 90s, most of them drunk driving related. In 1991, Pickett was charged with drunk driving after flooring his Chevy Silverado over his neighbor's yard and threatening him per UPI. This neighbor just happened to be the mayor of Englewood, New Jersey.
The wicked Wilson Pickett.
Jet reported that Pickett agreed to perform a charity concert in order to have the charges dropped. This was far from the end of his problems with drunk driving. While intoxicated behind the wheel, Pickett drove his car into an 86-year-old pedestrian in 1993. The AP reported a strict sentence for that one. 1 year in prison, 5 years probation, a $5,000 fine, alcohol treatment, and 200 hours of community service. No charity concert here. The Who were synonymous with destruction, and drummer Keith Moon in particular has his share of wild stories. Many of those stories are tragic, including the little-remembered incident where he accidentally killed a man. The precise details are a bit fuzzy, but coverage by Rolling Stone and research by journalist and Moon biographer Tony Fletcher suss out a sorry scene. In January of 1970, Moon and some friends visited a pub in Hatfield, Hertfordshire. Among those friends was Neil Boland, a chauffeur he hired with the expectation of being wasted. When the group left the pub, they were accosted by skinheads who weren't pleased seeing a rich man with a fancy car in their neighborhood. Boland either left the car or was pulled out, at which point Moon took the wheel and drove to safety, unknowingly driving over, dragging, and killing Boland. Moon pleaded guilty to drunk driving, driving without a license, and driving without insurance. Even so, after more details emerged, the court cleared him of all charges. According to Rolling Stone, the judge even said, "You had no choice but to act the way you did, and no moral culpability is attached to you." Even though he was exonerated, Moon was racked with guilt. Pamela DeBar, a famous groupie and brief romantic partner of Moon, recalled that he once broke down and claimed he was a killer. She told The Sun he would wake up screaming. It was so sad because it was obviously an accident, but he blamed himself.
It would often come up, "Oh, how could I have done that? I'm a murderer."
Peter Yarrow is best known as the Peter in Peter, Paul, and Mary. He's remembered as much for his peace activism as he is for Puff the Magic Dragon.
He's talking.
Oh, Mom, Dad.
He was also convicted of assaulting a teenage girl in 1969, a charge to which he has openly and repeatedly admitted. The victim, who identified herself as Barbara Winter to the Washington Post, recalled that her older sister was president of a Peter Yarrow fan club in Washington, D.C. The two were invited to his hotel room, where he answered the door without clothing and sexually assaulted Winter, who was 14 at the time. Yarrow pleaded guilty to immoral and improper liberties and was sentenced to 1 to 3 years in prison, with all but 3 months suspended. He often called it, quote, "the worst mistake I have ever made." A decade later, he petitioned President Jimmy Carter for a pardon, a petition supported by powerful political friends. He was granted a pardon on Carter's last day in office, to the disgust of the Winter family. The Post also reported that this was far from the only time Yarrow was accused of this. Winter's family sued him on top of the criminal charges, claiming the molestation continued. This ended with an undisclosed settlement. The Cincinnati Enquirer reported that the father of a 15-year-old girl made similar charges in 1967, only to be ignored by a grand jury. Another woman sued Yarrow in February of 2021, claiming that he groomed and assaulted her in 1969. A settlement was reached around April. Billy Preston had a few solo hits, including 2 number ones in Will It Go Round in Circles and Nothing from Nothing, but he's probably best remembered as one of the most important sidemen in rock history. He performed with everyone from Little Richard to the Red Hot Chili Peppers, but his time with the Beatles stands out. His obituary in the New York Times notes that he's the only man to ever share a credit with the Beatles with Get Back. He was part of their legendary rooftop concert chronicled in Let It Be.
If you'd like to do that, you're welcome.
Sure. Beautiful.
Right, and then you'd be on the album.
That same obituary states that Preston also had a severe drug problem. His issues became especially pronounced in the 90s. He pleaded no contest to assault and cocaine possession charges in 1992 and spent the next 9 months at court-ordered rehab. He was sent to prison again in 1997 after violating probation. But drug addiction is more an illness than a crime. His most serious crime was the $1 million insurance fraud scheme, which he was charged with while already serving time. The indictment in 1998 claimed that Preston, his manager, and at least 5 other people burned their own houses and faked burglaries for almost a decade to scam insurance companies. Preston pleaded guilty a month later and cooperated with prosecutors, with his publicist telling the AP, Preston has taken responsibility for his past mistakes and is looking forward to the future. Much of Johnny Cash's mystique was wrapped up in his outlaw image. The black suits, the legendary live albums recorded in prisons, and enough drugs and bad decisions to fill a biopic helped maintain that image. Even so, he never spent all that much time in a jail cell, recounting one such time where he got locked up for trespassing and picking flowers in Starkville City Jail. That said, he did face trouble with the federal government on one big occasion, when they accused him of burning down a national forest. On June 27, 1965, Cash was, one way or another, at the center of a massive fire in Los Padres National Forest. Cash's FBI file claimed the fire was started by a defective exhaust system on Cash's camper. Damon Fielder, Cash's nephew and camping buddy that day, had a different story. The Los Angeles Times reports that he saw his uncle fanning a fire he lit himself, likely drugged out of his mind and trying to stop it. Cash wrote in his 1997 autobiography that during this time, he was drugged to the gills and ready to fight.
I don't really remember what the charges were, a lot of them.
During a deposition, upon being told that the fire scared off or killed dozens of California condors, he responded, "I don't give a damn about your yellow buzzards." When asked in court if he started the fire, he snapped back, "No, my truck did, and it's dead, so you can't question it." Cash ultimately paid $82,000 in damages. James Brown's many criminal charges, from the alleged to the convicted to the confessed, are numerous enough to fill a book. This includes multiple lawsuits from women accusing him of sexual assault.
How did all of this trouble begin?
Living in America. There's nothing wrong.
The most prominent and public of his accusers was Jackie Hollander, who told her story in depth to CNN. Then a songwriter, she worked with him on a charity single. She claims that he violently assaulted her in 1988 and later blacklisted her from the music business. Hollander spent years trying to get her case heard, to no avail. She eventually tried suing him in 2005, saying the stress from the assault gave her Graves' disease. But per the Chicago Tribune, it was dismissed for being past the statute of limitations. CNN also uncovered 3 other lawsuits against Brown, each from women he employed, and each claiming in gruesome detail how he demanded sexual favors from them. 2 were withdrawn, and 1 resulted in a jury finding him liable for wrongful termination, but not sexual harassment.